everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Alex and today I'm going to be bringing you a wrap up of my 5-star predictions video. Now, way back several months ago when I started my channel, I posted a 5-star predictions video and I will link it up in the card if you haven't seen it already. But in that video, I talked about 5 books that I thought that I might give 5 stars, and I have finally read all 5 and I'm ready to talk about my thoughts. Before we get into it, if you are new here and you're not already, be sure to go down and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first book that I mentioned in that video was A Very Large Expansive Sea by Tahereh Mafi. This book follows our main character Shireen, and she is a Muslim American teenager living in the year 2002, and she is having to deal with the repercussions of 9/11. People are looking at her in a different light now that this terrorist attack has taken place, and she is having to deal with the consequences of that. There's also a very large emphasis on Shireen's passion for breakdancing in this novel, and she meets a boy named Ocean, and there's a little romance there as well. Now, I put this on my 5-star predictions video because I have read a lot from Tahereh Mafi in the past, and she is one of my favorite authors, so I had a feeling that I would really enjoy this novel. I knew that a lot of it was kind of autobiographical, taken from her own experiences, so I was really intrigued and really hopeful that I would enjoy this, and I'm happy to say that I did. This is definitely something that I think that everybody should read. It puts a big spotlight on a lot of what a lot of Muslims, I imagine, had to go through after the events of 9/11, and it's something that I think a lot of us don't think about or don't want to think about, and it was really nice and eye-opening for me to have to face what these people may have gone through. I also feel like the romance as well as the breakdancing aspects were played into this novel really nicely. They didn't overshadow from the main storyline, but they held their own place in Shireen's story. Overall, highly enjoyed this one, would highly recommend if you haven't gotten to it already, and I did wind up giving this one a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I mentioned in my 5-star predictions video was Beartown by Frederick Bachman. Beartown centers around a hockey town, and everybody in this town, even if you don't have a kid on the hockey team is your thing. They are what is keeping this town afloat, and everyone is basically relying on the hockey team to keep them on the map. But when a young girl accuses one of the hockey team members of rape, things start to fall apart and the town finds itself divided. Now again, this is one that I put on this list because Frederick Bachman is an absolute favorite author of mine. I've read a lot of his work. I'd heard great things about this one and was really hoping that I would come to love it. And again, I'm glad to report that I did very much enjoy it. Now, this is definitely a departure from what Frederick Bachman usually does. It is much more serious than a lot of his previous novels, but it is just as impactful. The characters in this are very rich, and the dialogue is really well done. There will be some lines where Frederick Bachman just starts out just like a normal piece of dialogue and then hits you in the feels at the end, and it just gets me every time. You feel every single emotion that you can imagine going throughout this novel. You feel happy, you feel sad, you feel mad, you feel frustrated, anything that you can imagine, it is in this novel. If there is one complaint that I would have to put out there for this novel, it's that I did feel like I got a little bit muddled with some of the minor characters just because there were so many of them. You follow the perspective of a lot of different people in this novel, and the main players, it was pretty easy to tell them apart, but some of the minor characters just got a little muddled for me, but I enjoyed the rest of the book so much that really didn't affect my enjoyment. I haven't finished this duology yet, but I'm really looking forward to doing so, and we are now 2 for 2. I also gave Beartown a 5 out of 5 stars. The third novel that I included on the list was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a historical fiction novel that is told in an interview-style format with the members of this fictional band named Daisy Jones and the Six. They were a popular act during the 1970s, and we get to hear from all the different members of the band talking about how they came together, their rise to fame, and why they broke up. Now, I listened to this one on audiobook. It is narrated by a full cast of characters, and that is 100% the route that I would recommend going with this if you haven't read it already, or even if you have read this novel but you just read it in paper, pick up the audiobook. Now, one thing that I think this novel has in common with The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, also by Taylor Jenkins Reid, is that it's hard to believe that Daisy Jones and the Six were not a real band. Whenever Evelyn Hugo was big on BookTube last year, a lot of people were saying, I can't believe Evelyn Hugo is not a real actress, and that is how I feel with Daisy Jones and the Six as well. It's so hard to believe that they were never real, that these songs are not real, that this doesn't exist. This is all fiction. That was really hard for me to grasp because it is so rich and so well done. All of these characters are so flawed, but they are so redeemable. You just want to root for all of them. This is the first and only novel that I have ever read that I wanted to reread as soon as I was done. I haven't gotten the chance to pick it back up again, but I really want to. This was just an atmospheric novel that it was as good as I wanted it to be. It was absolutely everything that I needed. This is definitely one of my top favorite books of the year and probably one of my top favorite books of all time. Obviously, I also gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I mentioned on that list was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. Now, I actually just finished this novel. I talked about it recently in my mid-October wrap-up, so I will leave a link up in the card if you want to hear a little bit more in depth of my review. But this novel starts out following our main character, Oliver, who has been in prison for the last 10 years, and he's getting released at the beginning of the novel. Well, as soon as he gets out of prison, the detective that put him in wants to know the truth behind what happened all those years ago, so we get to go back in time 10 years with Oliver, back to college, see what actually happened with him and his friends and their acting troupe. They're all theater majors at the school, and one of them winds up dead, and we need to find out what happened. Now, I picked this up for a couple different reasons. First of all, I had just heard a bunch of people saying that it was really great, and obviously I want to take recommendations from booktubers that I trust, but I'd also heard a lot of comparisons of this to The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and I definitely see those comparisons still. I was really hoping that I would enjoy this one more than The Secret History, and I definitely did. I listened to this one on audiobook as well, and it was creepy and haunting and spooky and just the perfect fall vibes. There were twists and turns in this novel that I didn't expect. I think all the characters were fleshed out really well. The audiobook was paced really nicely because we are mainly following the backstory, but we get little snippets of the present, and I think that those snippets were done very well. And the ending of this novel is definitely the icing on the cake for me. It was so good, and just it was the perfect way to end this story, and I really appreciated what the author did. Now, this one was super close, but I wound up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And the last novel that I put on my 5-star predictions list was Aurora Rising by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. Now, this is a sci-fi novel that is set in the year 2038, and it follows our main character, Tyler, who is the top student at this space academy. Now, he is supposed to be recruiting his squad, and since he is top of his class, he's gonna get first pick, but he winds up getting caught up in some other circumstances and not being able to go to the recruitment, but he winds up with this motley crew of teenagers that essentially has to try to save the galaxy. Now, the reason I put this one on my list is because, first of all, the premise just sounded really interesting, but second, this author duo also wrote the Illuminae Files, which is another science fiction trilogy that I highly enjoyed. I was really looking forward to this new series from them. Now, I will say, while I did very much enjoy this, I think that I went into it with my expectations just a little bit too high. I wanted it to be as good as Illuminae, and quite frankly, it didn't hit the mark. I definitely think that Amy and Jay are very talented at crafting the world and the history and how the science works, and everything about crafting the setting of this novel was really well done. I also think that they work very well together because you cannot tell a difference in their writing styles. It just, if you didn't know any better, you would think that one person wrote the whole novel, and I think that that should be commended as well. The characters were really unique, the plot was really well done, and it sets up for a really interesting next novel. So I'm excited to read the next one. I think it's coming out early to mid next year. Excited to pick it up regardless. I did enjoy this one, just not as much as Illuminae, so I wound up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. So that is it for my 5-star predictions wrap up. We had 3 out of 5 that actually were 5 stars, and the other 2 I definitely highly enjoyed as well. So while I wasn't spot on, I was pretty darn close. So I have filmed a second round of 5-star predictions, which will be the next video going up on my channel, so be looking out for that. And if you have read any of these books that I mentioned today, let me know your thoughts on them in the comments down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, as well as going down and hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. So until next time, bye!